Almighty God, we, the representatives of the citizens of the City of Brisbane, are assembled here to strive and care for the welfare of our city and all its people. Lord, we ask that you guide us in the decisions we make today. Amen. Brisbane City Council acknowledges this country and its traditional custodians. We acknowledge and respect the spiritual relationship between traditional custodians and this country, which has inspired language, songs, dances, law and dreaming stories over many thousands of years. We pay our respects to the elders, those who have passed into the dreaming, those here today and those of tomorrow. May we continue to peacefully walk together in gratitude, respect and kindness, in caring for this country and one another. Please be seated. I declare the meeting open. Are there any apologies? Councillor Dixon.
Madam Chair, I wish to advise that Councillor Atwood, Councillor Marx and Councillor Wolfe will be absent for today's meeting, and I move that they be granted a leave of absence from the meeting.
Seconded.
It has been moved by Councillor Dixon and seconded by Councillor Gibney that Councillors Atwood, Marx and Wolfe be granted leave of absence from today's meeting. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Any further apologies?
I move that Councillor Collier be granted a leave of absence.
Seconded.
It has been moved by Councillor Cassidy and seconded by Councillor Kim that Councillor Collier be granted leave of absence from today's meeting. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Councillors, I draw your attention to item 2 of the agenda. Lord Mayor, would you please move the motion?
Madam Chair, I move that Council resolves to: Number 1, approve the amendment to administrative arrangements as set out in attachment A. Number 2, adopt the investment policy at attachment B for the 2025-26 financial year. B, the debt policy at attachment C for the 2025 financial year. C, the pensioners' partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment D for the 2025-26 financial year. D, not-for-profit organisations' partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment E for the 2025-26 financial year. E, payment of overdue rates and charges policy at attachment F for the 2025-26 financial year. F, the not-for-profit kindergartens' partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment G for the 2025-26 financial year. G, the not-for-profit affordable housing providers' partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment H for the 2025-26 financial year. H, the infrastructure charges debt management policy at attachment I for the 2025-26 financial year. I, the Brisbane infrastructure charges resolution number 14, 2025 at attachment J with effect from 1st of July 2025. And at point 3, amend AP 290 Brisbane Housing Supply Incentive Policy adopted on the 24th of October 2023 by Council Resolution 235/2023-24 and amended by Council Resolution 686/2023-24 on the 20th of June 2024 as set out in attachment K with effect on and from the date of this resolution. And 4, revoke the Financial Risk Management Framework 2023 from the date of commencement of the Financial Risk Management Framework 2025. B, adopt the Financial Risk Management Framework 2025 as set out in attachment L to commence 14 days after the date of this resolution. C, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to make all decisions and undertake all necessary actions for managing and undertaking financial transactions under the Financial Risk Management Framework 2025, and D, revoke all existing delegations made under previous versions of the Financial Risk Management Framework. And number 5, approve the establishment of the Brisbane Food Trucks and Coffee Cart program as set out in attachment M, and the procurement subgroup incorporating Stores Board submission, Resource Recovery Innovation Alliance as set out in attachment N. 6, delegate certain powers of council specified in column 1 of the table of delegations powers to the delegates listed in column 2, subject to any limits and special conditions listed in column 3, and on the general conditions of delegations as set out in attachment O. Number 7, to revoke from the resolutions of council specified in column 1 of the table of resolutions, revocations of power the power set out in column 2 from delegates listed in column 3 as set out in attachment O and effective on and from the 1st of August 2025. And finally, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer all of Council's powers under section 242 of the City of Brisbane Act 2010 specified in column 1 of table 1 of the general conditions of delegations as set out in table 1 of the agenda.
Seconded.
It has been moved by the Lord Mayor, seconded. If only. It has been moved by the Lord Mayor, seconded by by the Deputy Mayor, that Council resolves to 1. Approve the amendment to administrative arrangements as set out in attachment A. 2. Adopt the investment policy at attachment B for the 2025-26 financial year. B. Debt policy at attachment C for the 2025-26 financial year. C. Pensioners' partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment D for the 2025-26 financial year. D. Not-for-profit organisations' partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment E for the 2025-26 financial year. E. Payment of overdue rates and charges policy at attachment F for the 2025-26 financial year. F. Not-for-profit kindergartens' partial rebate of rates and charges policy at attachment G for the 2025-26 financial year. G. Not-for-profit affordable housing providers' partial rebate of general rates policy at attachment H for the 2025-26 financial year. H. Infrastructure charges debt management policy at attachment I for the 2025-26 financial year. I. Brisbane infrastructure charges resolution number 14, 2025 at attachment J with effect on and from 1st of July 2025. 3. Amend the AP 290 Brisbane Housing Supply Incentive Policy adopted on the 24th of October 2023 by Council Resolution 235 2023-24 and amended by Council Resolution 686 2023-24 on 20th of June 2024 as set out in attachment K with effect on and from the date of this resolution. 4A. Revoke the Financial Risk Management Framework 2023 from the date of commencement of the Financial Risk Management Framework 2025. B. Adopt the Financial Risk Management Framework 2025 as set out in attachment L to commence 14 days after the date of this resolution. C. Delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to make all decisions and to undertake all actions necessary for managing and undertaking financial transactions under the Financial Risk Management Framework 2025. And D. Revoke all existing delegations made under previous versions of the Financial Risk Management Framework. 5. Approve the establishment of the Brisbane Food Trucks and Coffee Carts program as set out in attachment M. B. Procurement Subgroup Incorporating Stores Board submission Resource Recovery Innovation Alliance as set out in the attachment N. 6. Delegate certain powers of Council specified in column 1 of the table of delegations of power to the delegates listed in column 2, subject to any limits or special conditions listed in column 3, and on the general conditions of delegations as set out in attachment O. 7. Revoke from the resolutions of Council specified in column 1 of the table of revocations of power the powers set out in column 2 for the delegates listed in column 3 as set out in attachment O effective on and from 1st of August 2025. And 8. Delegate to the Chief Executive Officer of the Council's powers under section 242 of the City of Brisbane Act 2010 specified in column 1 of table 1 on the general conditions of delegations as set out in table 1 of the agenda. Is there any debate? Lord Mayor.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this is an extraordinary agenda for what should be a very simple meeting. So I'm going to move a number of items be taken seriatim for debate purposes. Firstly, for debate purposes, item 1.
Just bear with me. Item 1 for debate.
For debate separately, item 2. For debate together, but separately from 1 and 2, items 3 and 4.
So, just one moment. You want to debate item 1 separately, so therefore vote separately. Debate item 2 separately, so therefore vote separately. Then you want to debate 3 and 4 together.
Correct.
and vote together.
Yeah, well, that'll be up to others. I'm
Yeah.
just doing
Keep going.
the debate. Yep. Item 5, separately for debate. And items 6, 7 and 8 together for debate.
Thank you, Councillor. Lord Mayor. So we will now start with item 1 for
Thank
debate and vote.
Item 1 is the amendment to administrative arrangements. This is something that we flagged in recent weeks, together with changes to portfolio responsibilities. These changes are about creating clarity, better alignment and strengthening how we deliver for local communities. This will simplify the organisational structure and that delivers a sound functional alignment with clearer accountability structures. The new dedicated customer services portfolio as part of Civic Cabinet and Council's committee structure will also be represented as a new service group, previously known as a division within Council's organisation. All service groups are also closely aligned with the committee and program structure. Council has engaged with unions and employees as required under our certified agreement through good faith consultation. And this is the important thing. These changes are at the service level only, and they're not intended to achieve budget savings or labour force reductions. It will involve some people in certain sections of council moving as a group to another section of council, obviously, and that's the changes at the service level, but it is not about budget savings or labour force reductions. It's proposed that the current arrangements be revoked and that Council adopts the proposed new organisational structure, functions and responsibilities. If endorsed today, the proposed changes and new organisational structure would take effect on this Saturday, the 28th of June.
Further speakers, Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks very much, Chair. Rise to speak on item 1 here to start with. And unfortunately, just track record suggests we can't really take the Lord Mayor at his word when it comes to changes for staff. The fact that he is protesting a bit much, even without provocation, about the impacts on staff suggests to me that we are going to see more staff lost across the organisation than we already have over the last 18 months, which is coming close to 500 now over the last 18 months. And what that does to the staff who remain in the organisation is place an enormous amount of pressure on them. Speaking to staff in the Transport Planning and Operations area of Council, an area of Council which receives an awful lot of inquiries, and more than ever, they say more than ever before, because Brisbane is becoming one of the most congested cities in the world and is the most congested city in Australia, and that's well known. That's well known by people who live and work in Brisbane. It's my understanding that those teams, there's something like 5 or 6 teams of 2 or 3 people working across. At any one time, that small group of people have 1,000 active jobs. So as they take 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, sometimes 10 weeks these days, to be able to get a response toward officers and no fault of their own because they are overworked, every time they clear 100 cases, 100 more or 101 more, then 102 more, then 110 more come in, and the workload on those staff is immense. And it's having a big impact on them. We see that as well. Our ward officers deal with those staff, and they often disappear from our communication for a while, and we wonder why, because they've got to be out on stress leave or medical leave, and they're not coping with the amount of work that's being placed on them. And that's not their fault. That's because of the political decisions we see of LNP chairs and the Lord Mayor in budget cuts. We saw that with the reports, that tree report that the ABC did on their RTIs. Those staff are overworked, overwhelmed with the work that needs to be done, and they don't have enough colleagues to be able to do the work, and they're unhappy in their work these days. And they feel like they don't have many options with this LNP council. So shuffling around the decks, including in here and, shifting and shuffling underperforming chairs out of portfolios, and then shifting and shuffling portfolios. In some cases, program areas, in some cases it's back to the future and what it was doing 10 years ago in some cases, but in other cases they're wholesale changes as well. And, when you have staff saying to you, another example is library services, when a long-term full-time librarian who's an essential worker for council exits the organisation, might be to retirement. They might have had a 30 or 40-year career in council. That person may be replaced often by two part-time positions that then those librarians have to be shuffled around different libraries throughout the week, sometimes not at all. And we have a more temporary workforce, a more casualised workforce within the organisation. People, as the Lord Mayor has admitted tonight, will be shuffled around, will be moved, will be stripped of their job titles, will be sent to different places, and that's not good for service delivery. And it's not surprising, though, because it was the Lord Mayor, this Lord Mayor, who a couple of years ago admitted that, in his view, council should not be a service delivery organisation. He believed that council should just focus on building infrastructure, but not focus first and foremost on the delivery of services to people. Well, when somebody rings up and says there's a blocked drain in my street, in Baskerville Street in Brighton, and a council officer is finally able to get out there and inspect it and agree with the resident and say, yes, it is blocked, we'll program that work to happen in the next few weeks, and then have to call back that resident and say, I'm terribly sorry, due to staff cuts and budget cuts, that will now have to be done in 10 months' time, and if it happens at all. Whether it happens with trees, whether it happens with our library services and with transport planning operations, we don't trust the Lord Mayor when he says that this won't impact staff and service delivery at council.
Councillor Cassidy, your time has expired. Further speakers? Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I rise to speak on item 1, the amendments to the administrative arrangements. The proposed amendment to council's organisational structure is about realigning the organisation to council standing committees and programs, making it easier to work together to achieve outcomes for the residents of Brisbane. It's a simplified structure which reduces complexity. It provides clearer accountability and it improves service delivery. Now, who wouldn't want that? A number of machinery of council changes are also required as part of the creation of the new customer services portfolio. This will deliver trusted, inclusive and resident-focused customer services to ensure that ratepayers and residents get even better services from their local government. Since the announcement, there's been ongoing realignment, resulting in roles and responsibilities of some groups and branches across council's organisational structure, requiring an amendment. All service groups are also more closely aligned with the committee and program structure. Councillor Cassidy, through you, Madam Chair, knows this, but he continues to seed fear with council's workforce. The Lord Mayor has very clearly said that council has engaged with employees and unions throughout this process. Our commitment, Madam Chair, to no forced redundancies and permanent employees having employment security remains. The changes are at the service level only. Council must continue to evolve to meet the changing needs and to meet the changing expectations of local government and their local councillors. We've consistently managed to balance the budget and respond to the challenges that we as a council have faced in this global market. And I'd like to remind every councillor in this place that recently we went through an extensive EBA process. 93% of our employees voted in favour at the recent ballot. Madam Chair, I commend this item to the chamber.
Further speakers? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you. I rise to speak on item A. I note the speeches by the Lord Mayor and the Deputy Mayor on this matter, and I suspect there's been a good bit of focus group workshop testing on some of that language because it's a little bit unusual, I think. Now, I don't know what consultation has actually occurred, and others will speak to this, but what I do know is that no one consulted with us, the council. I don't know if this is the new CEO's stamp of what she wants the structure of this organisation to look like, or I don't know if this is the Lord Mayor's shuffling of the deck chairs yet again. And we know, because I have been here for quite a while, every couple of years, all the deck chairs get shifted around, all the committees are called something different, all the divisional managers get different titles, all the staff jobs get thrown up in the air, they get juggled around, and they all plonk down, and then everybody's got to grab for the spot that they want. And that's what's been going on in the service delivery parts of council that I work with. They have been in the same boat they were in just a few years ago, trying to figure out how to do their jobs with less resources, less money, less support, in an environment where they're being restructured yet again. Yet again. It is diabolical. Now, I noted the Lord Mayor's weasel words just then in his speech, which is that these changes are, quote, not intended to have impacts on staffing, but they will have impacts on staffing. Now, we know that our staff are protected in permanent positions under their EBA, but the sneaky way in which this administration goes about getting rid of staff, which is happening every day, is they do not replace them. And that is how it is happening. And they are leaving in their droves because they are not happy with the direction of this council, nor did they sign up to be part of a consultancy or a management organisation. They're here to work for the better of Brisbane City Council. So this idea that there will be no forced redundancies, I suspect you could say that's true, but that's not the way, that is not the way that this administration, this LNP administration, get rid of staff. They do it through the back door, on the down low, in a very sneaky way that undermines staff confidence because they see their teammates going, they don't see those people being replaced, and they see more work coming their way. Now, the thing that I would like to raise today is, in addition to this being another one of these, I don't know, I don't think the Lord Mayor needs to go to Harvard. They're just going to teach him how to do more of this rubbish rather than actually run the city. Save yourself, save the city, stay here, do a bit of work, come out and have a look at Oxley Road, get it resurfaced. There's no need to go to Harvard on your leadership course and do whatever you're going to do over there, because this is the kind of rubbish that you talk about. Now, I would just like everybody at home and anybody watching, this is the current administrative arrangements for Brisbane City Council. It's got a table that says what parts of council are under what divisions, now services, of our council, and it's pretty clear. So you get a reasonably good idea of which teams and which areas or programs of council sit under which committee, under which divisional manager, or whatever they're going to be called nowadays, who knows. And it's pretty clear. That looks pretty clear, right? Like, at least you've got some idea of what's going on. Here's the new one for everybody playing along at home, right? Here is the new one. And it basically doesn't have any program teams. It doesn't have any breakdown of what areas are under which portfolios. It doesn't have any accountability in the structure of council. Here's what it says. Governance and legal services. Civic governance, legal risk services to enable the delivery of trustworthy public services. That's it. That's it. I mean, yeah. Corporate services. Business support focused on building innovative, future-focused organisation committed to delivering effective and efficient and trusted services for the community. And it goes on. Let's find, I don't know, where's another one? Where's the infrastructure? Managing the road transport network and delivering and maintaining essential infrastructure to play a role in supporting a growing and connected and livable Brisbane. That doesn't even mention the maintenance work that is now a responsibility of that committee. public space operations, all of those day-to-day service deliveries, they don't even rate a mention. This used to be a whole division of council
Councillor
with a
Johnson,
whole
your time has
portfolio.
expired. Are there
Very
any
bad.
further speakers? Councillor Massey.
Thanks, Chair. I rise to speak on the proposed administration arrangements. I'm just going to continue on. From that because it is shocking when you consider that the current arrangements list out every department. And let me go back a little bit. When I was, I'll go very quickly, when I was appointed as a councillor in 2023, one of the first things that we did was sit down and be taught about every department, right? And have something like this given to me, which listed out every single department, because as a new councillor, there's a lot to understand. Brisbane City Council is a huge entity. It's huge. It's the biggest council in the Southern Hemisphere, second biggest council in the world. And that we are being asked to vote from this to top line statements. Statements, it's just a statement. And you know, and what I find so fascinating, of course, is the governance and legal services. And like I'll repeat, we're going from transparency, some transparency at least, to top line statements, nothing more than, what, 60 words, maybe even 30. And I'll just repeat again, governance and legal services. Their job, even though we don't know what's going to be under it, we don't know the new names of anything under it, we don't know any of the departments that are going to be under it. It says civic government's legal risk services to enable the delivery of a trustworthy public services. Okay? Like, there's no transparency there. And I mean this genuinely, like it would actually be helpful not only to the councillors here to actually know what the department names are going to become, but to have some information on what we're actually voting on tonight. I'll move on now from that. Like, I think many of the councillors in this chamber, I believe, all of us have noticed one thing, which is there's reduced staff with the same workload, but there's less people, which has led to delays. I will keep mentioning this forever. Tree replacement. We went from knowing when we would get a tree replaced. I will always, because this is the prime example. Yeah. When a tree would be replaced, to now being told somewhere in 12 months. We can't, and I say somewhere in 12 months, and that's like the last time I had a chat to them, it could be much longer. So what we do know, what that demonstrates, reduced staff, same work, less people, more backlogs in the jobs that need to get done, longer delays, less elasticity, and less reactivity when we have challenges or challenging situations arise. And we know this. Oh yeah. And the one thing, and I'd love some clarity also, if possible, one thing that I absolutely noticed in these papers was the consultation bit. And what we have in these papers is a list of who was consulted. The divisional manager, the assistant divisional manager, executive general manager, divisional managers, et cetera, of different departments. But what I find the most interesting is the fact that it says the 23rd of June, 2025. Monday. That was Monday. Yeah, 3 days ago. Well, who knows? Who knows where we are? It's surreal. And that's what I find fascinating. Like, it's right there that that's the consultation that happened. And to me, the question still exists. It just says consultation. It doesn't talk about what was consulted, who was consulted, were departments consulted before this. It just says all are in agreement with the recommendation. That's it. No information about what the consultation actually talked about, and if anyone else, did these divisional managers speak to their staff before, and I quote, with the interesting words, before the reshuffle occurs that could, but wasn't intended, to lead to staff cuts?
Councillor Massey, your time's expired. Any further speakers?
Yes.
Councillor Griffith.
I rise to speak on this item and speak against it. This is trust us. Just trust us. We're honest. We're politicians. Don't trust you. This has been done behind closed doors. I really feel actually we should be doing this meeting tomorrow. I think we should be doing this when we're fresh, because there is just so much on this agenda. This is another whole day's work on this agenda, and you're pushing it through at night, and you're telling us if we don't do it by 7 o'clock, you go to dinner for an hour, so we just keep sitting. That's how you run the show? What we heard from Councillor Cunnings is, well, last year the line was from Councillor Fiona Cunningham, last year was sensible savings. Well, sensible savings saw $6 billion in debt, 500 staff cut. We just saw another 500 million cut from the budget. We can't get work done. I cannot get work done in my office. I cannot get outcomes to my residents. You know, this is just, the last restructure you did like this was diabolical. Diabolical. The staff are still trying to recover from the mud and mess you created. And now you give us this structure? This is just incredible. Morale out there is so low, I don't think it can go any lower. The fact that we've lost 500 staff in 18 months says so much about this administration, about the leadership that they're not receiving. People are depressed. People used to be really proud of working for this council. Now they want to get away from it. And I know, because they leave and then they contact me. And anyone out there, if you want to contact me and tell me what's going on. Because the more stories we have of the way this organisation is being run, the better we are for speaking up in here. This is just incredible. I'll give you some examples. I've waited a year for a quote to build a footpath for a disabled kid, and we still haven't got the design done. I've had to put through 8 times. 8 times we've had to get the electrical people out to get the lights working on the footpaths in Maruka Shopping Centre. I've had a 12-month wait to get a light installed in a dog park. And today, I received a request for a bush care group to put in a tap for them in a park, $40,000. This is not a council being run well. This is not money being spent well. You are people, the LNP are people who don't value or regard our staff as vital to the organisation. I believe, when I came to council, and the view was of councils at that time, that we are a service organisation passionate about Brisbane. You don't hear anything about passion for Brisbane. You hear passion for developers, passion for the Olympics. You don't actually hear any passion for our employees. You don't actually hear anything about passion for the people we're working for. It's shameful. This is shameful. This is shocking. And I'm even more, I can't believe we're at this point again. And the whole mess and the whole game is starting again. And I feel really sorry for staff.
Any further speakers? No further speakers. Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Well, what we've just heard from everyone except for Councillor Cunningham is just complete conspiracy theories, fabrication, false information. We've heard a fair bit of misspeaking as well, and we know the Leader of the Opposition loves to misspeak. He misspoke about apparently what I believe about service delivery, but I can tell you what I believe about service delivery. I think we can be an organisation that builds things and delivers service as well. And this structure will help us do this. And so this is a good outcome. It will be, and it's also one that we're prepared to continually evolve and adapt. And so there's no such thing as the perfect organisational structure, but having said that, we believe this will make some improvements, and we're determined to continue improving the organisation as well. And so there is a number of things in this that will improve accountability and reporting, and also make it simpler when it comes to how the organisation reports up through the chairs that oversee different sections of council, so that there's clear lines of reporting and accountability. And I believe that that will help when it comes to ensuring the service delivery is continually improved as well. And I also know that Councillor Hutton, as the new chair for customer services, is absolutely determined to make sure that this organisation continues to deliver improved customer service. Councillor Griffiths talked about council officers and talking about them being depressed, and I suspect they would get depressed when they continually get verbaled by Councillor Griffiths in this place, because we've heard him say terrible things about council officers.
Point of order.
Mayor.
Claim to be misrepresented.
I note your claim of misrepresentation.
We've heard Councillor Griffiths say terrible things about council officers, and they would get depressed if they heard the council meeting and heard what was being said. On the other hand, Councillor Johnston always seems to be performing to an invisible audience back at home. Well, I checked, and there's 53 people watching, most of who are in Brisbane Square or in this building. There are occasional other people watching, such as former councillor David McLaughlin. Hello, David. Former councillor Matthew Burke. Hello, Matthew. And we appreciate you tuning in each week, because I know that former councillor McLaughlin and councillor Burke miss councillor Johnston greatly, and they want to see her perform. And we know that she is obviously performing for them, because nobody else is watching other than the people in this organisation. But this is important stuff, because it will make a difference to what happens out on the ground. It is also about making sure our employees in the organisation are very clear about the accountabilities and what is expected of them as we deliver for the people of Brisbane. And we do know that they have a passion for Brisbane, just as we have a passion for Brisbane, and this will help us deliver better outcomes for people on the ground.
Councillor Griffiths, your point of misrepresentation.
Sorry, I don't believe I've ever verbaled a staff member. Thank you.
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
Point of order, Councillor Toomey.
Councillor Burke sends his regards to the chamber.
We will now put item 1 to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. No. The ayes have it. Division called by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor Massey. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Clerks, please ring the bells. Clerks, please read the results.
Madam Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 16 in favour and 7 against.
That is carried. Councillors, please return to your seats.
Point of order, Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Dixon.
Chair, I move that Council adjourn for the period of 1 hour for dinner break until such time as the Council leave the chamber. So, yep.
Seconded.
Has been moved by Councillor Dixon and seconded by Councillor Givney that Council adjourn for dinner for a period of 1 hour, which commences only when all councillors have vacated the chamber and the doors have been locked. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no.
No.
The ayes have it. The meeting will be adjourned when all councillors have left the chamber.
Division. I've called division repeatedly.
There's no one seconded you, Councillor Johnston.
I called a division.
Councillor, nobody has
repeatedly.
seconded you.
Sealed it.
Look, we're happy to do that. No, let's go to the division, councillors. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. It has been called by Councillor Johnston and seconded by Councillor Chongwa. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Clerks, please ring the bells. Clerks, please read the results.
Madam Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 16 in favour and 6 against.
That would be carried. Councillors, I'll see you back here in 1 hour. Councillors will now move to item 2 for debate and voting. Deputy Mayor. Get comfortable.
Thank you. Item 2, Madam Chair, is the adoption of budget-related policies. These policies, before the opposition gets started, these policies
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm out of breath. Firstly, the doors to City Hall were locked, forcing us to come right around to the front. At the front, we were challenged by security to show passes. This is a public building when council is in session. Why are members of the public being denied access to Brisbane City Council meetings?
Councillor, that is not what we are debating tonight. That's a separate incident that I'm happy to take up with you later and has nothing to do with me as chair of the chamber. So if we
Point of order, Madam Chair. Yes, it does. If the public are being denied access to a meeting of council, that is a matter for you as the chair of council to make sure that that is not happening. And that's what just happened. And we shouldn't have to run around to find an unlocked door when we're working.
Councillor, we'll look into it, but every Tuesday night, the side doors are always locked when we come back from dinner as well, and we walk in the front door. And we will look into that for you.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Point of order, Deputy Mayor.
Former
Councillor
Deputy Mayor.
Adams.
If we are discussing this, I'd just like to make the comments that Councillor Johnston was very rude to that security guard, but there is a girls' school formal on downstairs at the moment, but I'm guessing that the principal asked for the doors to be closed and security kept safe for the people that are actually in the hall. On top of, I would much rather the doors and security check who's coming in. Somebody could have said I was coming into the meeting, go up to the public gallery, but that was absolutely appropriate behaviour by the security guard.
Thank you both councillors. We're not debating this, so they're not points of order that either have made. And as I said, it is something that we'll look into, and I think that it was quite obvious that there was an event going on. And being a former teacher, obviously we do have to be very careful about who is coming in and out of the building, and it is not... Councillor Johnston, I do caution you, because you know very well not to talk over the top of me while I'm speaking. So I am cautioning you. We are going to go to item 2. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 2 has a number of different sub-items, the investment policy, the debt policy, pensioners' partial rebate of rates and charges, not-for-profit organisations.
Councillor Cassidy?
Councillor Cunningham has the call.
I think Councillor Cunningham
It's
finished hers. And
So it should go
while
side
we're
to side,
interrupted, well, she's spoken on it, so she doesn't get to speak again.
You just called the Lord Mayor, but he didn't stand up.
Excuse me, Councillor Cassidy. Just like any councillor in here can stand up and speak, and the Deputy Mayor did not. She has spoken. Now the Lord Mayor is speaking.
No, point of order.
Councillor Cassidy.
You remind us a lot that it goes side to side. So you've just said the Deputy Mayor.
Well, there was
sat down and
nobody
finished.
on their feet.
Nobody was on their feet, and you called the Lord Mayor proactively. You just said, Lord Mayor, stand up. Is that how it works now? Are you just going to call us randomly? Is that it? I don't know.
I'm happy to speak. I'm ready.
Have not called you.
Oh.
We were rudely interrupted when trying to debate item 2, and councillors claimed that they were not here and were not able to be here in time, Councillor Cassidy. Would you like me to say, well, you know, that's too bad, we're not going to go back and debate item 2? I'm sure that you would like that, but at this point, we are going to debate item 2, and I am going to call the Lord Mayor to speak. Lord Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as I was saying, various sub-items in this, and I think I got to the not-for-profit organisations partial rebate of general rates policy, payment of overdue rates and charges policy, not-for-profit kindergartens partial rates. Obviously, you can read the rest. And these are items that come through every year at budget. In terms of key points of difference that I just wanted to point out, first of all, with the debt policy, this policy sets out how we're going to be making planned borrowings over the next 10 years, and in fact, it shows how we're going to be reducing debt over the coming years. And so we're going to be decreasing debt by approximately 20% over the coming few years, and that includes reductions in borrowing of at least $145 million, and over the repayment term, reduction in interest of around $87 million as well. Overall, by 2028-2029, it's expected that our borrowings will go from $3.7 billion down to $2.9 billion over that period. The other thing we do is we manage the timing in which borrowings are made as well, and so we strive to make the borrowings as late as possible in the year if they're required, and if we need less than we require, then obviously we won't make that borrowing. That helps us as well, saving interest. Included in this is our normal pensioner rebate policy, which will deliver $28.6 million in rates, rebates and concessioners for pensioners. There's approximately 39,500 pensioners that will receive rebates, either full or partial. In terms of other changes, I just wanted to point out changes relating to infrastructure charges as well. And I know there's another item coming at item 3 on this, but with our infrastructure charges resolution, we're continuing to provide a 100% discount on social and community housing projects. And while the exact level of support is based on the number of applications received, we've budgeted at least $3 million for these kind of discounts to be given in the coming year. That's over and above other types of support that we give for affordable and social housing as well. So In terms of key issues that stand out compared to previous years, they're the main things, Madam Chair.
Further speakers. Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks very much, Chair. At the outset, I just want to say it's disappointing we won't now hear from the Chair of the Finance Committee and the Deputy Mayor about the debt policy, the investment policy, the pensioner rebate, not-for-profit organisations rebate, payment of overdue rates policy, not-for-profit kindergartens rebate, not-for-profit affordable housing providers rebates, infrastructure charge debt management, Brisbane infrastructure charge resolution. That's disappointing that the Deputy Mayor and Finance Chair won't be speaking on those items now in this meeting, but I will. And at the outset, I'd like point B, 2B, taken seriatim for vote, please. Okay. Assume that's taken. We will support all items here except for item B. A debt policy is required, of course, but we don't support this LNP regime's debt policy that's before us today. Finance expenses in this budget sit at $164 million, and that's expected to increase next year and the year after that as well. Financial liabilities at $134 million, expected to increase by $20 million next year, another $10 million year after that. Overall, council liabilities we see are in excess of $6 billion, debt in excess of $3 billion, and staying stubbornly high despite the Lord Mayor not announcing any major infrastructure projects over the next 4 years whatsoever. We know the metro extension is off the table now, so no debt incurred for that. But we know that the debt policy that the Lord Mayor is bringing here tonight is going to be useless very soon, because what's just been reported is that the state government has ignored the crumbling Story Bridge in its latest budget. The state government ignored the crumbling Story Bridge, with the Transport Minister insisting it is a council asset, despite Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner's mission to secure funding for a major upgrade. This is the Transport Minister's quote: "This is a Brisbane City Council asset which it is responsible for managing and maintaining." And then the Transport Minister goes on to say, Chair, that Council has not formally requested any funding from the state government. So I assume all those requests the Lord Mayor must have made were informal requests to the state government. He was informally told no, he wasn't getting any support from the LNP to fix the Story Bridge. Therefore, of course, he's not going to make a formal request, because how embarrassing would that be for the Lord Mayor? How embarrassing would that be? Hence why he stopped saying a few weeks ago, didn't he, that it should be all three levels of government supporting the Story Bridge. And that was around the same time that these off-the-record secret conversations that the Lord Mayor was having with the LNP state government, that the LNP state government included that special extra dot point in their amendments to the transport legislation enabling a new toll to be introduced in Queensland. And we can only expect the Lord Mayor is working with his LNP counterparts at the state government level behind closed doors, because, you know, no formal and official records will exist of this, but often we know this happens behind closed doors. They don't keep minutes of meetings, of course. We've discovered that. They are cooking up a deal to put a toll on the Story Bridge, because we know otherwise we're going to have to see this debt policy thrown out the window, because Council's going to be up without the support of the state government for an enormous investment in the Story Bridge. For an enormous investment. The Lord Mayor let slip that it might be, I think he said maybe at $1.3 or $400 million. Others who know the industry well suggest a rebuild like that might be $1 billion. So what is the Lord Mayor's plan? Crickets. Crickets.
Happy to
the
talk
Lord
through
Mayor's
it.
plan is crickets. That's all he's got. Just grins like a Cheshire cat. The Lord Mayor has no plan. There they go, they laugh. They laugh about it.
Happy to take it. Yeah. I can tell you
Sorry.
the plan.
Did you have a question of the Lord Mayor then?
So
Councillor
do the standing orders allow that, do they, Chair?
No, I'm just wondering why you were doing that.
Are you running
you.
this meeting? Are you in charge?
I'm
Are you in
so
charge?
trying
Hello?
to, Councillor.
Hello? Is anybody home? Hello?
Councillor Cassidy, I know that you want me to throw you out.
I don't think you have the ability.
Well,
I don't think you do.
I don't know. I think I actually probably look a lot fitter than you, councillor, but I wouldn't physically throw you out. So I actually have the power, even though I could. So what I'm going to say to you, Councillor Cassidy, is your time has expired. Further speakers. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I stand to speak on item 2 this evening.
One moment, please, Councillor Adams. As much as I want to hear you, Councillor Strunk, what's your point of order?
Consistency. Councillor Johnson was up on her feet before Councillor Adams, and I ask you to be consistent in your rulings. You had 2 that side, it should be 2 this side, and maybe you got 2 the other side, if that is the change of rule.
Thank you, Councillor Strunk. I don't need you to run the meeting.
Madam Chair,
I do try to, councillors, to the best of my ability, I will try to do that, but it is the meeting that I am in charge of, and Councillor Johnson had got up and spoken, so it was just one of those things that I naturally did that. But to the best of my ability, I will go from side to side as much as I can, and so therefore, I'll ask you also to remember that when you criticise that somebody over here has jumped on their feet and I've gone over there when it's their turn. Works both ways. Councillor Adams.
I was happy to concede, but thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. And speaking about consistency, I'm a little bit shook up tonight because it's after dinner and Labor's come back. And I'm a little bit thrown speaking to people on the other side of the chamber after a dinner break, because that is not consistent. That is not consistent at all. But I do appreciate the opportunity now to speak about the overview of these policies and the reason why these policies that we deliver every year in this place for our financials are making Brisbane's financial situation so strong. I hear the guffaw from the City Council from Maruka. Your leader just said you were supporting everyone bar B, so I'm presuming you also agree that this is going to be...
Through the chair.
Through the chair, through you. To the Cowardly Council from Maruka, through you, Madam Chair, that you are supporting these bar item B, so therefore you must agree that this is making Brisbane's financial situation so strong.
One moment, Councillor Adams. Point of order, Councillor Griffiths.
Look, I saw Councillor Cunningham giving her the speaking notes, but I don't think cowardly councillor is appropriate in this chamber.
That is not a point of order, and I don't uphold your point of order. Councillor Adams. Councillor Cassidy. No, thank you. Don't keep doing that either, Councillor Griffiths. And I caution you again, and I caution you, Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Johnston, for that language. Councillor, just being consistent, thank you, councillors. And I caution you again, Councillor Griffiths, for speaking while I am. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At least I didn't call him a serial killer. Hey, Councillor Hutton. Item A is the investment policy that we have before us that outlines Council's investments, objectives and procedures to acquire, manage and dispose of investments. With many households still feeling the pressure of higher living costs, we've worked hard to deliver another balanced budget. And we have a long track record of delivering balanced budget in this place. It takes discipline, despite the economic uncertainty of pandemic, floods, sustained inflation, now a tropical cyclone, and as we heard from Councillor Chong-Wah today, a guaranteed 1 in 100 flood again next year, apparently. But we have also kept for 12 consecutive years a strong credit rating. B, our debt policy. Now, this is interesting that they're not supporting the debt policy. Well, I presume they're not because it's been taken seriatim for voting. But this sets out our planned borrowings for the next 10 years, over a period of which they will be repaid. And it's important to remember the principle when you're preparing a budget that it's not our money. It's residents' money that we are actually working with, and this side of the chamber respects that. We closely manage the money in our budget, and we've decreased our forward borrowings by $145 million. Crucially, this will also reduce our interest rates. Our interest costs, sorry, not our rates, our costs. We wish the interest rates would go down. But at the interest rates we are reducing our costs and saving ratepayers an estimated $87 million over the repayment term as well. Now, what that means is that we know how much on the bills that we have to pay and how much cash we're going to have in the bank. It's like a mortgage. Whatever you've got left over, when you've balanced the budget, you pay on to your net debt. And what I just said, I will repeat again. We will be reducing our net debt by 21% this year, from $3.7 billion down to $2.9 billion. Just like last year, we've been able to delay the drawdown of our annual borrowings until mid-June, 11 and a half months into the financial year. And again, that is only because of the strong financial management of this administration. Pensioner partial rebates, rates and charges policy, obviously. We have the most generous rebates for pensioners in the country, without fail. The rebate is up $50 from $12.48 to $12.98 per annum, and the partial rebate from $25 up from $6.24 to $6.49. 39,500 pensioners plus will receive this rebate this year. Not-for-profit organisations, obviously, we support their rebates, and the payment of overdue rates and charges policies allows us for granting of a concession to eligible pensioners who are experiencing hardship. We continue to support our non-for-profit kindies and our non-for-profit affordable housing providers without fail to make sure that we are looking after the cost of living for those that are delivering services that are so vital to our growing city as well. Last but not least, our infrastructure charges debt is going to be managing our overdue infrastructure charges. This is a spectacular financial outcome, and I recommend it to the chamber.
Further speakers. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I rise to speak on item 2 regarding the financial policies that we're adopting, and many of these are non-controversial, including the partial rebate of rates charges for our seniors, which is essentially important and something we've done for a long time. I do note that it's quite interesting that the amount we're going to charge them in the new bin tax is actually the same amount that we're increasing the pensioner rebate, yes. But only for full pensioners. Part pensioners will still feel the cost of the Lord Mayor's levy grab, revenue grab to try and prop up his dodgy budget. But we are continuing that pensioner rebate, which is essential. Not-for-profit organisations, there's a compassionate policy for overdue rates, rebates for the kindies and the affordable housing providers. We could do more there, I think. We haven't done enough. And I'm very supportive of the Brisbane Housing Corporation and Council looking at what land it has that it can provide to BHC to encourage more affordable housing through that vehicle we have that could do this for us and do it very well. But there are a number of things in here that I will not be supporting, and I just ask that H and I are also taken seriatim for voting purposes, and they can be together unless H and I. So I want to start with the debt policy. I'm going to get my crystal ball out. I wish I brought one with me that I could put on the table and have a little chat about it. This is a fascinating document this year. Obviously, debt is through the roof, $3.7 billion. In 2009, my first year as being a councillor, it was zero. Maybe Dr. Freeman would be interested in this. Zero. This council has zero debt. Under this LNP administration, it's gone from zero to $3.7 billion. And every year they seek more money, they put it on the credit card, they put it in the bottom drawer, and they're reluctant to pay it off. Now, do I actually reckon at the end of this year our debt is going to be down at $2.9 billion? Let me get my crystal ball out and go, no, I don't believe it will be. So it will be fascinating to see where this ends up. But this document, the debt policy for 25-26, is not worth the paper that it's printed on. And I say that because council is upfront that it's going to borrow $200 million this year. We're not really sure what for, because there's no big ticket expenditure. Keep the lights on. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cassidy. No big ticket expenditure items, you know. We used to hear that speech from them a lot, didn't we? Like, we only borrow for the investing in the major projects, but they don't say that anymore. This $200 million is just waffling into the back end of the budget where it's going to slosh around and prop up this tired administration that cannot resurface roads, cannot keep the Story Bridge running, and so on. But what is in the forwards is the really interesting bit. According to the forwards, next year's budget, we won't be borrowing any money. 2027-28 budget, we won't be borrowing any money. 28-29 budget, we won't be borrowing any money. 29-30 budget, we won't be borrowing any money. 30-31 budget, we won't be borrowing any money. 31-32, we won't be borrowing any money. 32-33, we won't be borrowing any money. 33-34, no money being borrowed. 34-35, zero. So let's just have another gaze into the crystal ball and go, well, I reckon in the 27-28 year, the Lord Mayor's probably going to borrow a little bit of money just to fund his election promises in 2028. It'll still say zero out beyond that because he'll have one eye on the fact he does need a little bit of financing to fund whatever pork barrelling rubbish projects he comes up with on the back of an envelope for the 28 election. But then he's going to have one eye on stuffing up any future administration that might be from a different part of politics and say, well, we said we weren't going to borrow any money going forward, so why are you borrowing money? No one believes this, through you, Madam Chair, to the CEO. This council for the next 10 years is not borrowing any money to do any work on any projects, despite having an iconic bridge that's falling apart, despite having the Olympics in a few years. We don't need to borrow any money to do anything. I hope I'm here for a long time to bring this piece of paper. I might frame it, put it on the wall of my office and bring it out for chit-chat every time we have a talk about the finances, because this is the least believable document I have ever seen produced
Councillor
by
Johnson,
Brisbane
your
City
time
Council.
has expired. Further speakers? Councillor Massey.
Thanks, Chair. Before I begin, could I please also ask voting for item A and also be separated and also item I.
So you want item A voted for on its own and
Yep.
item I, so not H and I together, but H separately and I separately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Look, I'll start on item B, which is the debt policy. In a city growing as fast as Brisbane, like this debt policy seems very much as a fantasy. And I recognise, like, the debt that council's in, $3.7 billion, is a lot. But this seems like a fallacy and a fantasy. And the reason I say this is because it is just, I mean, from memory, we borrowed over 400 million this year? From memory. It was over 400 million. We did it late. But it's just unbelievable that we won't be borrowing anything other than 200 million in the 2025-26 budget. And look, and what I will say is there can only be two situations where that is true in this growing city. This is, and this is a prediction. I don't have, like, I'm just going to put it on the record. I believe that there can only be two situations where that is true, that we will only borrow 200 million in the next 10 years in 25-26. The first situation is just continuing cuts to the budget. Less delivery, less delivery, less delivery. The second, actually, before I go there, while rates keep going up, so we know that rates revenue is predicted to increase. We saw the 400 million in 2023. We saw the 500 million in forward cuts announced not long ago. So, and now we saw, you know, I think the words that have been used over budget debates are like really interesting. Investment, even though we can see the numbers for many programs have been cut. Investment, though, it's an interesting word because there is investment. It's just much less. Anyway, the second potential is, of course, if we offload the responsibility entirely to the state government and the federal government. And I don't think that's going to happen because vital infrastructure like the Story Bridge does have to be funded. And what happens if vital infrastructure like the Story Bridge doesn't get funded by state government or federal, right? So what's the plan then? We're going to have to borrow. I'll finish there. I'll finish there on that one. I just want to get a couple of quick points on the public record about item G, which is the non-for-profit affordable housing providers, the partial rebate. There's a criterion here which talks about 80% less than the median, the rental, the market rent. And I just want to put something on the record. In suburbs like those in the Gabba ward, where the median weekly rent for a 2-bedroom unit have hit $650 to $750, or a single unit can be anywhere between 500 and, a single unit can be anywhere from 440, this is from memory, from like 2 weeks ago or something, to maybe 550. That means that affordable housing technically can still charge $520 or $600 a week. This is not affordable for single parents, this is not affordable for pensioners, this is not affordable for students, this is not affordable for growing numbers of renters in the city, noting that 4 out of 10 people are renters. Since 2020, rents in Brisbane have gone up by 52%. So I think there's actually a problem with the definition of what is affordable housing, particularly when you have to have, I'll stop there, we do support it, but like you need to have
expired. Are there any further speakers, councillors? Any further speakers? Lord Mayor.
Thank you. A lot of interesting discussion on debt today. So a couple of comments were made. I think Councillor Johnston said that we have a high level of debt. And it's interesting because the level of debt, the net debt, is $3.7 billion. Our annual budget is $4.1 billion. So having a level of debt that is actually less than your annual budget, if you ask most people, that's actually not a high level of debt. It's a responsible level of debt.
And it's going down.
And so if you think about your own household situation and what people might borrow to buy a house, do they borrow more or less than their annual income? Usually a whole lot more, usually like 5, 6, 7 times more than their annual income. And so, you know, say for example, their income is $50,000. They may borrow several $100,000 to get into a property. That is seen as something that a lot of people would consider doing. And if you look at our budget, having a borrowing less than our annual budget is not a high level of borrowing in real terms. But let's have a look up the road because the state budget is around $90 billion. And in just a few years' time, their total borrowings will be $205 billion. Wow. And if you think that's bad, it would have been a lot worse if Labor had stayed in, because Labor projected $218 billion with a $90 billion budget. So any comparisons need to take into account that we have a responsible level of borrowing. Also needs to take into account we have only ever borrowed to build things. And so the building program, so if we've got $3.7 billion worth of borrowings right now, net debt, well, what's been delivered? there's been $10 to $15 billion worth of infrastructure that we built, and we have only a level of borrowings of $3.7 billion. What does that tell you? The majority of our infrastructure program is funded through our annual budget rather than through borrowings. That's the way that we've always done it. Now, there's a couple of big years where we've been doing a lot of things at once, where we borrowed more than normal in a number of years, and that's been recently. But what we're doing now is going back to a more normal level and also making sure we can consolidate to make sure that we're in a strong financial position. Now, ultimately, what happens in 5 years' time is anyone's guess. You know, we have to make responsible decisions now to set us up in a strong position going forward for whatever may come. I know that when I became the Lord Mayor in 2019, I didn't anticipate that there would be a global pandemic that would cost $120 million in our budget, and then a flood that cost $330 million, and a global inflation crisis which has cost an incredible amount extra on our budget, and then a cyclone that's cost $76 million. So all of these unanticipated things can happen and do happen, which is why we run a balanced budget, and it's why we're building financial capacity now. We know that doing that will give us options going forward. And so by reducing debt this coming year and over the next few years, that gives us a strong position to make decisions going forward based on whatever the challenges may come our way, or whatever the infrastructure needs may come our way. But the reality is the majority of the things that we built over the years have been funded through the budget, not through borrowings. And Councillor Johnson likes to point out that we had zero debt, but what she doesn't mention is that the reason our debt was zero for 1 year was because the state forcibly removed a massive income-producing asset from us, i.e. the dams of southeast Queensland. And so they were not only an asset on our book, but they also produced revenue each year. The state government forcibly removed those from councils, and the compensation from that was to pay down our debt to zero. Now, what would we do? Do we keep our debt at zero, or do we actually build infrastructure? We chose to build infrastructure, and we've delivered $10 to $15 billion worth of infrastructure for only $3.7 billion worth of net debt.
Councillor Massey. And, sorry, Lord Mayor, I heard that. Councillor Cassidy, stop calling out. Lord Mayor.
So ultimately, we believe that this approach that we're putting forward here is the right thing to do right now to consolidate our debt levels, to bring them down, to give us capacity for future decisions that might need to be made. And as I said, I mean, Councillor Johnston might have a crystal ball, but I don't.
We'll now put item A to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. We'll now Division called by Councillor Massey and seconded by Councillor Chong-Wah. Councillors, ayes to my right, noes to my left. Clerks, please ring the bells. Clerks, please read the results.
Madam Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 21 in favour and 2 abstentions.
That is carried. Councillors, return to your seats. Councillors, will now put item 2B to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Division called by Councillor Cassidy and seconded by Councillor Kim. Councillors, ayes to my right, noes to my left. Let clerks please ring the bell. Clerks, please read the results.
Madam Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 16 in favour and 7 against.
That is carried. Councillors, please return to your seats. Councillors will now put items 2C, D, E, F and G to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Councillors will now put item 2H to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Division.
Seconded.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Johnston and seconded by Councillor Griffiths. Councillors, ayes to my right, noes to my left. Please ring the bells. Clerks, please read the results.
Madam Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 22 in favour and 1 against.
That is carried. Councillors, please return to your seats. Councillors will now put item 2I to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Division. Division.
Division called by Councillor Chongwa and seconded by Councillor Massey. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Clerks, please ring the bells. Clerks, please read the results.
Madam Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 20 in favour, 1 against and 2 abstentions.
That is carried. Councillors, please return to your seats. Councillors will now move to debating and voting on items 3 and 4. Lord Mayor.
Item 3 is the amendment to the Brisbane Housing Supply Incentive Policy. This was released in 2022 and it was focused on providing a short-term stimulus to create more supply or support more supply of housing at a time when it was desperately needed. This incentive was always due to come to an end on the 30th of June this year, and it is coming to an end. But this incentive has helped deliver 1,100 plus new homes in Brisbane that may not have been feasible otherwise without this incentive. So there are several thousand residents living in those 1,100 homes that we have been able to support the provision of. But I will say that we're continuing to provide an incentive to community housing providers and social housing with a 100% infrastructure charges reduction. That's not a time-limited thing. That's an ongoing thing that we will continue to support. And as I mentioned before, we budgeted over $3 million for that particular program this year. Obviously, we'll see how many applications come in for that money. It may be less that's required, it may be more, but obviously we've made a provision based on what we think is a reasonable number of applications. And we'll obviously review that during the year as well to see how that goes. But our support for social and affordable housing with that incentive is unwavering. And this also provides support for projects like the BHC project at Chermside that we visited, Councillor Parry just recently, which is an amazing development. It's a mixture of social and affordable housing, so it's a split. It was a really good outcome. It's a good quality development, and we've been able to support that one and a number of other BHC buildings with this 100% infrastructure charges reduction. So the other thing is, I would say, is that this incentive, when it was first released, was based on the fact that there were a number of approved applications that hadn't been acted on. And so we knew that we'd been approving applications at a normal rate, but the number of commencements was not a normal rate. And that reflects the increase in building costs. That reflects the pressures when it comes to the feasibility of projects. And so this incentive was to try and get approved applications or applications that were already in the system going. And as I said, it's helped deliver over 1,100 homes through this incentive. The initial part of it comes to an end, but the 100% discount for community and social housing providers continues. Item 4 is the financial risk management framework. There's been no substantial changes made compared to the one that we've had in the past. There is, however, a revised framework that includes a facility limit increase for the work cover bank guarantee from $20 million up to $30 million. And this is based on an assessment of what might be required in that work cover bank guarantee. And so the CEO will have the delegation to authorise an application to the State Treasurer for the approval of the increased facility limit for Council's work cover guarantee following the adoption of this framework. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further speakers? Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks, Chair. Could I ask that item 3 be taken seriatim for voting at the outset? On 3, this is amending the Brisbane Housing Supply Incentive Policy, something we supported when it came into Council, and this is amending it to extend it. There was a lot of debate when it was first brought in, and what I said stands now. We support it on balance, but raise concerns. We're strongly in support of incentives for community housing providers, and I've been strongly on the record for a long time, and a lot longer than the LNP, have been in supporting community housing providers in that space, and that was based on feedback we received years ago from community housing providers needing that extra support. And our support does run deep. We've never referred to social housing as slums, unlike the Lord Mayor, and I'm glad he no longer does that. Earlier this week I said we met with UDIA to learn about construction costs, and they're persistently high for a wide range of housing that is required to address the housing crisis here in Brisbane in a unit block that would be delivering 8 to 10 units. For instance, the construction cost is upwards of $1 million per box, as they say. But we do note as well, as we discussed earlier, that this council's not making housing affordability any easier for individuals on a whole range of fronts, including increases to rates, fees and charges. And some of those fees and charges that are going up twice the rate of inflation is development fees for mum and dad builders, for individual people building their family home on a small block somewhere in the suburbs of Brisbane. So there's plenty of work to do. We support the delivery of more affordable housing, but we think the Lord Mayor picks and chooses sometimes and gets away with what he thinks he can. So the risk to the policy as well, and we continue to, I guess, gauge that and have a look at the 1,100 homes the Lord Mayor says has been delivered as a direct result of this policy and how affordable they are. And we put that to Councillor Allen at the time in needing an ongoing review process to see what is being delivered. So you can see if you can tweak the policy if you need to do so. The Lord Mayor has a lot of details. Obviously, he knows exactly where these 1,100 homes have been delivered as a result of this. So he should be up front and tell us what the rental levels are of those properties. Yeah, well, yeah, I'll take that interjection from Councillor Strunk. Built, he said. The Lord Mayor said built. So we'd like to know what the rent that is charged in those 1,100 homes compared to market rates, so we can know if this is a success or not. Because we know this is giving developers a discount and is making their profit margins healthier And I accept some large developers have been running at losses over the last couple of years, and they have to continue to build and continue to run at a loss because they have to employ 500 staff or 1,000 staff. They've been doing that, but we know this has been improving their profit model. Has it been improving housing affordability is the key question. The Lord Mayor hasn't outlined that. He can in summing up. He can tell us how much cheaper the rent in those places are compared to comparable buildings alongside them, because that was the trade-off, right? That was the trade-off in giving the discount to developers to make it a cheaper option for people seeking a rental predominantly here in Brisbane. So we'd like that information. On the items, the 4 items, 4A through 4D, we won't be supporting these items. They include the financial risk management and delegations to the CEO around this, and the framework sets out how council manages financial risks. We know that in terms of financial sustainability and compliance with state legislation is one thing, but also managing risk to the ratepayers of Brisbane should be front and centre. It's not just a tick and flick legislative exercise that we should be talking about in here as elected representatives of the people who are paying us both to be here to represent them and paying that. Oh, you're allowed to laugh outside. I get confused sometimes who can laugh and who can't laugh in the council chamber. We are paid to be here in the council chamber, and some of us are here. Some LNP councillors aren't, of course. I don't know why Councillor Cunningham is laughing about some councillors being at the ALGA. I think that's a bit rude. In fact, but anyway, but the biggest financial risk to not just this council but to the people of Brisbane is the Lord Mayor and his political decisions, and the risk of a toll on the Story Bridge is a real thing under his leadership.
Councillor Cassidy, your time has expired. Further speakers? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to speak on item 3, the amendments to the Brisbane Housing Supply Incentive Policy. As has been discussed earlier today, there are housing challenges facing the city. Housing affordability, supply and choice have been strongly impacted by a complex set of economic conditions, including rising building costs, global supply issues and labour shortages. That is why we introduced the Brisbane Housing Supply Incentive Scheme policy in 2023. This was designed to provide support for the construction of new dwellings in well-serviced growth areas and offering 100% infrastructure charges reduction for community housing providers. And the key motivation for this particular incentive was that we were conscious there was a lot of development approvals out there that weren't being activated, though they were in effect dormant, because the feasibilities couldn't stack up. And we were particularly keen to see studio 1 and 2 bedroom units in well-located locations to see those activated. Now, at the end of May, as the Lord Mayor pointed out, more than 1,100 dwellings were supported to receive an infrastructure charges reduction. As I mentioned, we're very proud that this particular amendment seeks to continue the full reduction to community housing providers, and we're wanting to ensure that the eligibility criteria are clear. So in particular, we wanted to clarify that the reduction applies to dwellings being owned and managed on a long-term basis as social and affordable housing by community housing providers. This is to ensure that the incentive is being obtained for housing that falls within the intent of the policy. Additionally, we are removing the maximum 2-bedroom limit eligibility criteria for community housing providers, meaning any sized unit in a multiple dwelling development is eligible, provided it is for social and affordable housing. Obviously, community housing providers can provide this type of product anywhere in the city and can receive the incentives. So, Madam Chair, this is about continuing that support for the community housing provider sector. We have a number of organisations who've availed themselves of the opportunity, and we're certainly seeing quite a lot of enthusiasm for this particular incentive. Talking to the community housing providers, it definitely is a meaningful incentive for them, And the other thing that I think is really important that perhaps doesn't come out in this particular paper is that we work very actively with community housing providers when they put an application in to make sure that the development assessment journey is as smooth as possible, and I commend this to the chamber.
Further speakers? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you. I rise to speak on items 3 and 4, and I just want to outline that I certainly have previously and do continue to support the housing incentive, supply incentive policy. This council can and should do more to facilitate affordable homes and social homes for people in need in our community. We know that they are doing it very tough, and as I've just mentioned earlier, I believe there are other ways we can do this through our land and assets that we have and our ownership of the Brisbane Housing Corporation as well. I was just going to have a quick look, and perhaps the Lord Mayor will sum up with this, but I'm concerned by what Councillor Allen just said about we're tweaking the policy to make sure that these incentives are there for the longer term. So I just want to make sure I haven't misunderstood what he was saying, that we're not giving these discounts and then suddenly, you know, within a year or two, we're not seeing these properties being maintained for affordable and social housing. So I just hope there's not some loopholes that are happening here, and if there are, I would hope that the Lord Mayor or Councillor Allen would clarify that for us, because it is important that we support genuine affordable and social housing initiatives for people in our city. The financial risk management framework, I won't be supporting item 4, and that's for a couple of reasons. The first, and as the CEO of Council is still sitting here and still listening, which is very good, I will say I don't support any delegations. Don't be personally offended. I've never supported, through you, Madam Chairman, I don't support them. This council has delegated away far too much of its authority for the running of this city, and that is not to the benefit of the residents of Brisbane when, no offence, unelected people are making decisions that are not relevant to the communities that we represent. You know, huge decisions are just taken away and we have no idea what's going on. Your contract, the whole bus arrangement last year, we have no idea what the bus operating arrangements are with the state government, none, because that was just delegated away. So the delegation of power to unelected council officers undermines transparency, accountability and democracy in the city of Brisbane, and I just do not support them. And there's another 170 delegations coming, which I won't be supporting as well. But the financial risk management strategy, it's certainly an interesting one because it kind of outlines, you know, where all the hollow logs are and, you know, what councils, where council's funding is. And, you know, it's interesting, I just noticed in there the $500 million revolving line of credit we have with the QTC, which I remember that debate when it came through here. It's like just having this slush fund, you know, that you can just draw on. Doesn't count as borrowings. It's just there. So it's not part of the $3.7 billion. It's another $500 million on top of that again. I don't know how much of that we're actually using at the moment. Some, all, whatever, you know, there's no way to know. But the way in which this council runs its financial management process is not transparent. It is not accountable, and we certainly have some real problems with the way in which the Lord Mayor decides what to fund. So this year we're borrowing another $200 million, and I don't know what it's for. I mean, the Lord Mayor hasn't outlined to anybody what that is actually for. Is that to build, I don't know, what's it called? The mini street, something or other over in Councillor, mini street over in Councillor Toomey's area. It could be to fund that, I have no idea. Could it be to fund the Lord Mayor's trip to Harvard or the next trips off to talk about the Olympics? I don't know. There's no outline of what this money's being spent for. Certainly not being spent on fixing the Story Bridge or any other major emphasis, not being spent on a green bridge because there's no money for that. It's not being spent on fixing Oxley Road, there's no money for that. It's not being spent on drainage around the city, there's a tiny bit of money for that. So, you know, I don't support it. I won't be supporting the financial management policies of this council. I don't believe they're in the best interests of the residents of Brisbane. They're too opaque, they lack accountability, and they're just giant slush funds used by the LNP for whatever they want.
Any further speakers? Councillor Chongma.
Thank you, Chair. I rise to speak on Clause 3, Attachment K, the AP 290 or 290 Brisbane Housing Supply Incentive Policy, which has been cutting infrastructure charges for developers, basically gifting developers handouts. Infrastructure charges are fees that the council collect as part of development approvals. They contribute to parks, community facilities, footpaths and public transport, etc. These amenities are vital for creating a healthy lifestyle, vibrant public spaces, elevating congestion and addressing the climate crisis. Infrastructure needs are critical for a sustainable and livable city. The LNP's reduction of infrastructure fees has led to more congestion, underfunding of services and further stress on public amenities. The housing crisis is driven by a number of intersecting complex issues based on housing being treated as simply a commodity rather than a social good. While our community struggles, greedy developers will still be selling their dwellings in the market at the existing soaring prices and pocketing the windfall. These discounts are not bringing land prices down. There is absolutely no proof that this has impacted on housing affordability or reducing homelessness. In the last 5 years, the social housing wait list within Brisbane City Council has grown 18%. To a staggering 10,000 people. Interestingly, a few years ago, our Lord Mayor, through the Chair, supported the Greens plan to increase the state government cap on infrastructure charges so we could charge more, not less. We should be ending these unnecessary and unethical discounts now and investing that money directly into desperately needed infrastructure. Our community deserves well-designed, sustainable development and infrastructure that ensures we have a livable city now and into the future. This budget that has been approved today demonstrates very clearly that these discounts have undermined our investment in basic infrastructure. We can see that developer infrastructure revenue has dropped in 24-25 and 23-24. I want to be clear, we do support the 100% infrastructure discounts provided to community housing providers. That's it. Thank you.
Further speaker? No further speaker. Lord Mayor. Now I put item 3 to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Division called by Councillor Chongwa, seconded by Councillor Massey. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Please ring the bell. Clerk, please read the result.
Mr Deputy Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being in 20 in favour and 2 abstentions.
The item is passed. Councillors, please return to your seats.
I'll now put item 4 to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Please ring the bell. Clerk, please read the result.
Mr Deputy Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 15 in favour, 5 against and 2 abstentions.
The item has passed. Lord Mayor, item 5 of the agenda. Lord Mayor, your microphone is not on.
Item 5 has 2 subcomponents: the food trucks and coffee carts in park policy, which was something we took to the election last year, and also a resource recovery alliance amendment. The coffee carts in parks proposal talks about growing the number of approved trading sites from 13 to more than 100 across Brisbane. Under the old program, which effectively started as a trial, it was a situation where there was only one permit option available. And operators were generally paying about $2,130 a year. This replaces the old outdated permit systems with a single streamlined approach that offers more sites, simpler pricing and flexibility for operators. And so there's a tiered system based on the type of location it is and the popularity of that location, the propensity for that location to generate a lot of customers. And so people have a choice, operators have a choice in terms of putting in for different locations. This is something that I think we've had good community support for. The community wants to see more food trucks and coffee carts in parks across Brisbane. And I commend this particular item to the chamber. The second part of it is a change to the arrangements of the Resource Recovery Innovation Alliance with Cleanaway. Now, Cleanaway operates our transfer stations or resource recovery centres on our behalf as a contractor. And as we gear up to universal green waste in standalone houses across Brisbane, we obviously need to make amendments to the way that Cleanaway arrangement works. We currently process around 40,000 tonnes of green waste a year, and as we roll out more bins and we get increased take-up, we expect to see that tonnage increase from something between 60,000 tonnes and 80,000 tonnes a year. There's the potential for that, and obviously we need an arrangement for processing in place and dealing with that green waste. And so Cleanaway will be adjusting the arrangement with Cleanaway to make sure that they have the equipment and the trucks and the front-end loaders and all of the things that are needed to deal with the green waste that's coming in, the extra green waste, and making sure we're getting that green waste recycled as well. And so this proposes a change to the existing arrangement to accommodate the extra green waste that will be coming in.
Further debate. Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks, Chair. I rise to speak on item 5, both A and B, and ask that item A be taken seriatim for voting, please, which is the food truck and coffee cart program. This is just like a Die Hard with a Vengeance. Yes. The trucks of gold. Adrian Schrinner robbing these food trucks of these exorbitant fees, trucks of gold going into council, fees coming in. Now, you will remember, the Lord Mayor talked about his election commitment. I remember the Lord Mayor said, I think I've got the quote down here, where he said he would reduce registration fees to $450 per year for mobile coffee cart and food truck operators and expand locations where they are approved to operate under Coffee Carts and Parks program. Now, we talked about half of that just then, the expansion of 13 to 100 sites, but why didn't the Lord Mayor talk about the fees? I wonder why. 450, he said, what was that? Yeah, 450. He was going to bring in, reduce the registration fees of 450. What do we see before us today, Chair? Tier 1's $450, which accesses you to 22% of the sites, mainly neighbourhood parks, some roadside spots near employment hubs and sports fields. But if you want to jump up to Tier 2, the special membership, about 80% of sites are covered. That's $1,650. And then, if you want the extra special Tier 3, which gives you all the sites admittedly, $2,200 for the fee. So the Lord Mayor went to the... We're getting this consistent theme over the last last 2 days, all of these broken promises. Now, it's only been... What's this been like 12, 15, 16 months on since the last council election? And we've seen the Lord Mayor break his ironclad promise around delivering a metro depot out to Fitzgibbon. We've seen broken promises around rates increases and fees and charges. And we've seen now another broken promise exposed. He promised to keep the registration fees for coffee carts and food trucks at $450, and we find that he's now charging them $2,200 in some instances. So we've got some suburbs in Brisbane having rates increases of over 10%, lots over 7.5%. Now we have this other broken promise of small businesses who are trying to do something innovative and add to the Brisbane lifestyle. Were promised by the Lord Mayor, they might have went and made an investment. They might have thought, okay, $450, we can do this and we'll start expanding our business. And then the Lord Mayor, well, he didn't really drop it, did he? Because he didn't even mention it. Didn't mention it in his budget speech. Didn't mention it today in introducing this item. $2,200 to register a food truck. That's really quite incredible. So no wonder the Lord Mayor didn't mention that in introducing this item, and it's no wonder he can't be trusted at his word. He picks and chooses the detail when he wants to tell residents little bits and pieces. We'll be consulting further with food truck operators. This has only become evident in the last few days, but certainly based on that, we won't be supporting this item today, given the exorbitant costs that is being put onto small businesses. It's the most small business unfriendly council. You go to neighbouring councils, small business fees, market fees, food truck vendor fees, all way, way lower than this LNP regime is charging them, because they need the cash. They need the trucks of gold to be coming in from everywhere they can. They've got the pensioner tax, they've got the bin tax, they've got the food truck tax now, the highest taxing council Brisbane has ever seen in its history. Adrian Schrinner heads up the highest taxing council that this city has ever seen, Chair. Item B, the procurement for the Recovery Alliance. This contract makes sense to us because we are now entering a huge green waste journey. Finally, the Lord Mayor has listened to the Brisbane Labor team and has taken up our policy, part of it anyway, and is starting to roll that out. With the planned rollout of citywide green bin services, Cleanaway will directly manage on-site processing and transport as part of the Alliance rather than subcontracting it out further. Cleanaway can do that at a cheaper per tonne rate than Phoenix, the existing operator. We haven't seen a major change to the way that all Brisbane residents tackle waste since the 1990s. The yellow top bins were introduced by Labor, revolutionising waste reduction through the 1990s, and another Labor policy now is revolutionising waste reduction in 2025 as well. So it's a shame that the Lord Mayor waited for 5 years and dilly-dallied around and therefore is passing on the bin tax to people. Brisbane,
Councillor Cassidy, your time has expired. Further speaker, Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, and I rise to speak in support of the establishment of the Brisbane Food Trucks and Coffee Carts program. So from the 1st of July 2025, we will retire two outdated programs, the Gourmet Food Trucks program and the Standard Mobile Food Vendor Process, and replace it with a single, unified, streamlined approach. One that supports local businesses, one that brings life to local parks, and one that makes it easier for Brisbane families to enjoy the beautiful city that they call home. And Chair, at the election, we said that we were going to do this. We made a clear commitment to bring food trucks and coffee carts to your local park. And guess what? It was one of the most loved commitments that we made at the election. On this side of the chamber, when we make commitments, we deliver them. Now, Chair, it hasn't taken long for Labor to put their spin on this and Councillor Cassidy to bring out the mistruths. So, let me clear things up. In 2024, Council introduced a temporary fee reduction and extended existing approvals while we consulted with vendors, upgraded our online platforms and designed the new program. It is really important to understand that our new food trucks and coffee carts program was designed with the industry for the industry. So I really look forward to when Councillor Cassidy goes and talks to these food truck vendors. Under the previous system, the Gourmet Food Trucks program, you could only trade in 13 limited locations, and they were subject to an annual permit fee of $2,130. Meanwhile, other mobile food truck vendors faced a more complex process, needing both a mobile food permit and a separate park use consent to trade. The costs included 3 separate fees: a design assessment, an application and an occupation fee, totalling $668.70. Now, under the new model, vendors can access more than 100 pre-approved trading locations across the city with a single annual permit. It's a big leap forward for mobile hospitality in Brisbane and for our residents. It is a flexible 3-tiered pricing structure, allowing vendors to choose the option that best suits their business. Tier 1 at $450 for vendors wanting to access local parks. Tier 2, $1,650 per year, a broad range of locations including district parks. And Tier 3, $2,200 per year for full access to all locations across the city, including high-profile parks and locations, just like Rocks Riverside Park and New Farm Park. So, just to be clear, this new program is at its base level, $58 cheaper than the previous mobile food permit. But it's not just about the fees, it's all about the opportunity. We're increasing the number of approved trading sites from just 13 to over 100. And I can tell you that we will not stop just there. These sites were selected based on vendor feedback, councillor insight and community needs. Chair, I want to know that we did receive feedback from councillors. It was interesting because the Greens councillors, Councillor Massey and Councillor Chonghua, did not support any locations within their ward. That means no coffee and fruit park, no tacos in Captain Burke Park, no Korean barbecue at the Kangaroo Point Cliffs, and no Euros in Orley Park. All I can say is thank God that the residents of Brisbane voted for the Schrinner Council and not the Greens. And Chair, I want to reassure everyone that these sites were carefully selected with one important safeguard in mind: to support local businesses and not to compete with them. We've used spatial analytics to map each location and assess their proximity to existing food outlets, ensuring a balanced and thoughtful approach. Where a similar business already operates nearby, this program won't allow a food truck offering the same cuisine to book that site. For example, a food truck selling fish and chips won't be able to trade on the Sandgate foreshore location. This ensures fairness, avoids oversaturation and protects the small bricks and mortar traders that are vital to our local economies. And for vendors, we've launched an online platform with live site maps. Sorry, my apologies. And for vendors, we've launched a refreshed online platform with live site maps and the ability to book 6 weeks in advance, making it easier than ever for them to plan and grow their business. Chair, this is how we support local business, not with red tape, not with broken promises, but with a practical, well-designed system that delivers real opportunity. Chair, this program reflects the Schrinner Council, what the Schrinner Council is all about: supporting small business, enriching suburban lifestyle and delivering on our word. I commend this report to the chamber.
Further debate. Councillor Johnston.
Yep, thank you. I rise to speak on items 5A and 5B. I'll start with the Brisbane Food Truck and Coffee Cart program. I note all the commentary both from Councillor Hutton and also Councillor Cassidy, and I'd just like to put on the record my concern with this program. Firstly, the massive fee increases are quite obvious. I'm not aware of any consultation with the community about these locations, and I just want to make some remarks about the locations that were selected in Tennyson Ward, which are a bit odd, is my feeling. So firstly, Faulkner Park, 80 Waratah Avenue, Graceville. So this appears to be in no man's land between Banarawa and the dog park. It's kind of in a weird spot. It's at a dead end. It's not a place anybody goes to. It's very strange. It's very strange. It's not going to be successful in that location. It's just weird. You've got Banarawa very close by who open and offer free coffee and support to people. It's a community centre. So you're putting a commercial provider in against a community centre that invite people in for fellowship and tea, coffee, drink, you know, pretty much every day of the week, not the weekends. It's just very strange. The netball courts are just up the road. It's too far to walk. If you were going to netball on Saturday and maybe the canteen at netball was busy, you're not going to walk a kilometre to this. It's just weird. The whole thing's weird, right? That one's odd. But apparently it's going to cost you $1,650 to book that site. So I'll just put on the record now, don't do it. It's food trucks, you're going to lose your money. Graceville Riverside Parklands. Now, we already have food trucks that operate in the car park, so whenever the food trucks turn up in the car park, the community can't use the car parks at one of the busy and most popular parks in my area. So there are already food trucks operating there. They do compete with food businesses that are a few hundred metres away at Graceville Riverside shops, and now the shops at Yurong-Pili that aren't too far away, but, you know, that's where they do it. They leave a mess every time they go. Their pizza boxes are stacked up. There's rubbish everywhere. It's not great the way it's managed. So that one's existing. John Walker Place. This is the really odd one, right? So this is down on the Brisbane Corso in Yeronga. We have an existing food truck location, very successful one, that is within the community leased facility about 200 metres from this site. So they are wonderful. They are beloved by our community. I can't wait to tell my community that Brisbane City Council is setting up a commercial site in the park 200 metres from a beloved food truck that sits on the Somerville rowing shed site, which is council leased land. This makes no sense. Far from what Councillor Hutton said, that location will directly compete with an existing food truck that's a couple of hundred metres away. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's not going to help anybody, and it's just going to, I think, make it very sad for both of those food businesses that will be competing against each other. So it's just, none of this makes sense. Then, they're tier one. It's only going to cost them $450. So who knows how much the existing food truck is paying, but anyway. Then we've got Ken Fletcher Park, King Arthur Terrace. So that looks also to be in the car park. This is the park. Dr. Freeman won't know this, of course, through you, Deputy Chair. This is the park that in 2014, so 11 years ago, 600 square metres of the park collapsed into the Brisbane River. And it collapsed, and the Brisbane Canoeing Club, whose premises was there, had to be demolished because it was hanging out over the side of the new cliff, where we lost 600 metres of parkland at Tennyson. And the Brisbane Canoeing Club is still in containers in temporary facilities in the Graceville Riverside Parklands because this council cannot find them a home anywhere else. 11 years, no water, no power, no nothing. But in the car park, where we only have about 12 car parks, for a district level park opposite the tennis centre, they're now going to whack a food truck. Do you know what is 100 metres, 200 metres most away from there? The cafe under Tennyson Reach and the cafe at the tennis club. The tennis centre. So again,
Councillor Johnston, your time has expired.
Same with the other one. I could have kept going.
Further debate.
Bad decisions.
There's no
just
further
bad
debate.
Decisions. I didn't even get to talk on the waste.
Lord Mayor, Right of reply.
It's interesting. This reminds me of a few years ago. Well, actually, it was many years ago when Labor councillors railed against free Wi-Fi in parks. Some of you will remember that. They were dead against it, and it was going to be. They should be looking after their kids rather than accessing the free Wi-Fi in parks. They found every reason to oppose free Wi-Fi in parks. And it's like they're finding reasons to oppose a popular policy to have more food trucks and coffee carts in parks across Brisbane. It's extraordinary. It just goes to show that they will just find any reason to oppose it. And the claim about costs are just ridiculous. They're just ridiculous. The type of costs that we're talking about here. So we're giving people access to some very popular parks, some very well frequented parks. Now, if you were setting up a cafe for a small suburban cafe and you were paying rent, what would you pay, Councillor Hutton?
Chair, you'd be paying at least $1,000 to
I didn't call you to. I didn't call you to speak.
Thank you for that interjection. So if a small cafe was setting up in like a sort of high street situation, what would they pay? They would pay anywhere from $20,000 to $60,000 a year in rent. 20 to 60,000, that's a small suburban cafe. If they got a good deal, $20,000 a year rent. If it was a prestige location, maybe $60,000 a year rent. And then if you go to some very busy and frequented precincts, you'd be paying over $100,000 a year in rent. So what this does, it provides opportunity for someone to get into and dip their toe in the water at a location without a big outlay. And I don't think anyone can suggest that a couple of $1,000s to get access to premium park locations is a high rent.
You did. You promised $450. Councillor Cassidy.
Honestly.
Councillor Cassidy, please do not interject.
And so what we see here is the opportunity for small businesses to get in, to see how people respond to their offerings without breaking the bank. They've got a very low cost entry here into a big opportunity. It's just like the husband and wife team that I met today at Sunnybank. And they were in the first sort of trial round of coffee carts in parks, and they basically they dipped their toe in the water a number of years ago, and now they do this as their full-time thing. And they've got a great location there in the park at Sunnybank. They have regular customers that come along. They were praising the local councillors. They specifically mentioned Councillor Marks, and I think they mentioned Councillor Huang as well, and how supportive they have been. And it was a good migrant business story as well. A couple from South Korea had set up that business, and one of your constituents, in fact. And so they didn't mention you, though. But I don't know. It didn't come up. It didn't come up. So this gives people an opportunity to get in at that low-cost entry, to see how the business goes, and then, you know, the sky's the limit potentially from there. But having said that, Councillor Johnston made all these complaints about, oh, it generates a lot of rubbish and, you know, like all these problems that will come up. Well, people should pay something to get access to a public facility. Do you think we should give it for free? Businesses just move in for free and use the parks? No, the ratepayers should get something in return, because there are things that need to be done in these sites potentially, such as rubbish removal. There are things that need to be done, like a power or water connection sometimes nearby. So there are considerations there that mean that there should be a cost. There should be a cost. And so ultimately it's appropriate. It's a low level that we are charging. If they were moving into a high street situation, they would be paying anywhere between $20,000 and $60,000 in rent per year, but we just have opportunity for a couple of $1,000s, give or take, to try this out, and is very small business friendly. So I commend this to the chamber.
Now I put item 5A to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. No. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor Cheong Wah. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Clerk, please ring the bell. Clerk, please read the result.
Mr Deputy Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 16 in favour, 5 against and 2 abstentions.
The item is carried. Councillors, please return to your seat. I now put item 5B to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. No division? Good. So, Lord Mayor, item 6, 7, 8 of the report.
Now to the controversial one. Items 6, 7 and 8, I know at least one councillor will be very passionate about this one, and that's me, because the nature of what we do in this organisation, such a large organisation, means that there are a number of decisions that need to be delegated to the CEO at the operational level, and this is what the next 3 items deal with. The City of Brisbane Act obviously gives us the ability to decide as a council to delegate certain types of decisions and certain types of powers, and this is something that every council in the history of the City of Brisbane has done, and that is for practical reasons. If everything had to come to full council for approval, we'd be a very slow-moving and bureaucratic organisation that wouldn't be customer-focused, wouldn't be able to deliver great results for the community, and so there are certain operational things and decisions below a certain financial delegation that can and should be delegated to the CEO or to another approved officer. And so there's 157 delegations before us today. 70 of them are required due to amendments to legislation. 39 delegations are required due to evolving operational needs for business or work areas that have been identified through council policies, procedures and practices. The remaining 48 delegations are being remade to correct any administrative irregularity which has arisen as practices and policies have evolved. And so that would involve, if a policy's changed but the delegation hasn't changed with it, delegation then needs to change as the policy changes. In addition to the new delegations, it's also proposed by this item to revoke 1,109 delegations that are no longer required or relevant. And so 157 delegations being awarded today and 1,109 being taken away. So no offence, CEO, but I think you'll be happy with this outcome as well, because I know you're passionate about making sure this organisation provides great customer service and is responsive to the needs of the organisation and the community. Thank you.
Further debate, Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks, Chair. I rise to speak on 6, 7 and 8 here, and what is presented as a tidy-up of who has the power to make the final call here at Council on a whole range of items is more than that. And as councillors, we need to ensure that not just this process, but also the process of decision-making at a council level is as transparent as possible. And we haven't experienced that, not on this side of the chamber anyway, a level of transparency and accountability in council decision-making process. Not, it's been bad enough here in the chamber over the years, but council as a organisation as well has left the community wanting, the community that we represent. Major financial decisions cannot be left in the hands of one single person, regardless of who the person is, in principle. The delegations cover a huge range of council businesses, including but not limited to land acquisition and compensation, animal management, development assessment and planning development assessment, rules, environment, food, gas, water regulation, heavy vehicle and road management, liquor licensing for South Bank, audit and financial management, public health, right to information, which has been huge issues in the right to information space, and access to information as councillors has been a major issue lately. 85% of all refusals for councils for RTIs come from Brisbane City Council. There's no accountability for that here in this council chamber when we find out those things as they're reported in the media. Most powers are delegated to the CEO and to the E&C committee, with some financial limits. CEO can approve compensation claims up to $2 million and E&C up to $4 million. So I guess the question then remains, what is the point of voting and making decisions in the chamber if E&C and CEO can then override those decisions later as delegate of council? I know that the E&C committee don't often meet outside of council meetings. These days they don't. I think in the last recess they went 4 weeks between meeting. So yeah, maybe a lot of them are overseas. But in that situation then, they are the delegate of council to make the decisions we are supposed to make as councillors. So who was making decisions at that time? What was going on in the business of council stopped and ground to a halt entirely? Maybe the Lord Mayor was making unilateral decisions. We don't know, because there's no transparency and accountability around this more regime-like behaviour, concentration of power in a small group of people. And a great example of why this is a serious issue, a real-life example that we are now living through and will have the consequences of debated in this place for the next 10 years, the Story Bridge. Now, we were led to believe by the Lord Mayor that over the last 10 years, huge amounts of work were done maintaining the Story Bridge. He's had sometimes claimed it was $80 million, sometimes claimed it was $120 million. The only item that's ever come through this place, and the supreme decision makers in council are us, according to the organisational chart we debated an hour ago, council sits at the top. So council sits at the top, and under the Act, council is the 27 of us in here in council meetings. The only item that's ever come to the council chamber in the last 10 years regarding the Story Bridge was one single stores board submission. And then, well, related to that, the cancelling of the request for tender process as a result of that stores board submission. So there was no oversight at a council level for all of the decisions that were made around the neglect on the Story Bridge for the last 10 years, because these delegations were put in place and because the Lord Mayor and E&C and CEOs at the time, the CEO at the time, and other officers who were delegated authority to do that, had no accountability to the council chamber, to the council, to the elected members of the council who go out to the community and are held accountable to the community for decisions that are made. So we can't have a situation where the Lord Mayor claims he knows everything about the maintenance on the Story Bridge, and yet nothing has ever come to the council chamber for scrutiny around that over the last 10 years. And herein lies the problem. We're seeing this year after year, increasing numbers of delegations away from elected representatives. That's just one example, but that's a particularly egregious and glaring example of neglect and lack of transparency and accountability on decision-making around important citywide assets. And that alone should ring alarm bells, and that alone is why we won't be supporting this item.
Any further speaker? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Chair. I too rise to oppose this item, as I've consistently done for a few things I got to do when I became an independent. One of them has been consistently for many years opposing delegations. Secondly, calling for city cats to come further up the river. I would also like to put on the record just my concern, seeing the CEO is still here and still listening, which is a good thing, that the delegation of power to unelected people is not accountable or transparent. We get barely any information about what's happening. We then are asked to delegate that away to others to make decisions. And yet, under the Act, it says we are accountable for the decisions that are made at Brisbane City Council. We can't be. We do not know. And I'm going to give 2 examples. Number 1, the Metro. And the dodgy motion that went through this chamber last year was shocking. Essentially, the Lord Mayor wrote a bit of a funny money motion which combined a one-off payment, gifting away all our assets on the Metro, and maybe getting some operating revenue in return from the state government. The only thing we knew at the time was that we're going to get a one-off payment of $75 million, which was, as we found out, that this council had not, how long they've been working on the Metro? Nearly 10 years? Somebody forgot to put some money in the budget to actually run the Metro. And then there was panic stations. And the Lord Mayor went, uh-oh, we better go and get up there to George Street. And as it is with the Story Bridge, the campaign started. Those meetings up at George Street won't give us any money to run the Metro. Meanwhile, the Lord Mayor had been running this Metro thing for, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, and they forgot to budget to actually operate the Metro. So they kept saying it's coming, it's going to start on this date, and they had no money, and they're like begging, please give us some money. So they got $75 million out of a state Labor government, big money Bart Mellish, as they like to say. More money they're going to get out of Crisafulli for the Story Bridge, as it turns out. But they got this $75 million one-off payment, rolled goal. I just say this all the time, appeasement never works to the Labor Party. They're the idiots that did it, but anyway, the appeasement never works, George Street, I mean. And meanwhile, as it turns out, we now know in the budget, $500 million in council assets is just being gifted up the road to George Street, immediately written off our balance sheet, not our asset. We've had all this pain for years and years of building this Metro, and meanwhile, boom, it's gone. It's not our asset anymore. And we don't even know how much money we've got to run the buses in Brisbane. We still don't know. We've never been told. That decision was delegated away. Other things that have been delegated away, still got another minute or two. The best one ever. When I started in this place, if you were going on overseas travel, it used to come into this chamber. It was publicly scrutinised. There was public accountability about who was travelling. They changed the delegation a few years ago, and now E&C delegate away the authority to themselves to go on their overseas junkets. And guess what's happened since that decision has been made? These guys are off on every overseas trip they can think of. Egypt, LA, Paris, New York, Switzerland, Paris, Japan, you name it. They're off. And the senior council officers aren't far behind as well on all of these trips. Councillor Howard, who's probably going to retire this time, and Councillor Adams, the Deputy Mayor.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Howard.
I would ask that the councillor withdraw that statement. She has no knowledge of what I may or may not be intending on doing.
Councillor Johnston, would you care to withdraw the comment? Yes, it was a point of order. Okay. Would you care to withdraw the comment? Sorry?
I understand that Councillor Howard doesn't like what I said, but I'm just wondering what rule you think I've breached, Mr Deputy Chair.
Well, Councillor Johnston, Councillor Howard asked if you would withdraw the comment about her. That's why I'm asking.
I'm sorry, is Councillor Howard running the meeting now, is she? I'm still
No,
not
Councillor
sure what
Howard
rule
made a
I've
point of
breached.
order, and I accept that point of order. And she has requested, she has asked you to.
I don't know. I still don't understand. I don't know either. Sorry.
I'm just wondering what rule I've breached.
No one said you have breached any rule, but Councillor Howard made a point of order to ask if you care to withdraw the comment you made on her. That's all.
As I said, I understand she doesn't like what I said, but, you know, I don't think I've breached any rule. You're apparently telling me that Councillor Howard can tell me to withdraw things. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Councillor Adams, of course, went on an overseas trip to Paris and then about 2 weeks later stepped down as Deputy Mayor and is having no role and is now actually leaving
Councillor
the
Johnston, your time
chamber.
has expired. Further debate. Well, there's no further debate, Lord Mayor.
I just will briefly say that I expect Councillor Howard will be in this chamber a lot longer than Councillor Johnston will, and Councillor Johnston will retire before Councillor Howard.
I now put items 6, 7 and 8 to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Chongwa, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Please ring the bell. Clerk, please read the result.
Mr Deputy Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 16 in favour and 7 against.
The items have passed. Councillors, as that concludes the business of the special meeting, I declare the meeting closed.